We're here today to talk about the Jamf return to service application. So this is a Jamf Pro add-on utility. It's absolutely free. The big requirement is it requires Jamf Pro in order for it to work. A little bit about this application. So last summer after DubDub, me and a couple colleagues of mine, Aaron Maxim, Adam Mahmood, we were thinking of like, hey, how can we support return to service with iOS 17? Should we have a button in Jamf Pro that somebody could just go ahead and push that button? Should there be an app? Should there be some other API-driven workflow for this? And essentially what we were given was an API. We were told there's not going to be a button. There still isn't a button today inside of Jamf Pro to go ahead and return to service a device. But there's other ways for us to make that happen automatically, and we'll go through those here this morning. But this app was born last summer about this time. We officially launched it down in Austin at JNUC, and we had a lot of success. And actually, I just texted my colleague to ask him for the latest numbers. So since the application was launched, we have had 57,000 return to service actions. So that's a lot of time, a lot of taps. Even with MDM, you still have to choose your language, your country, accessibility options, get it connected to the network, accept remote management at a minimum. Return to service eliminates those steps for you. And you'll see here, this is also going to be an interactive lab. So I have a bunch of iPhones up here, a bunch of iPads. It looks like we have enough for everybody, so I'll give you guys the opportunity to experience what it looks like as well. Just a little carrot, we are on conference Wi-Fi, so we'll see what happens. But I'm hoping that coming out of this session today that you're going to be able to really take this back and implement it in your environment. How many individuals in here are Jamf Pro customers today? Okay, pretty much everybody. Okay, awesome. Anybody managing like a library devices, loaner devices? Yeah. So I used to work at Lehigh University. We used to loan out devices when students would have a device that would come in for hardware repair. I wish that this existed. Has anybody heard of the Jamf Reset application? Okay, so Jamf Reset has been around since 2017. What Jamf Reset allowed you to do was open up the app, tap reset, it would wipe the device, but it would come back up and you would still have to physically go through those taps. So return to service is taking away all those taps for you, and it's just going to be go grab a cup of coffee and come back and you're at your home screen, which is very nice. Cool. So we already talked about who I am. Here's my Slack handle though. It's Derrad, D-E-R-R-A-D. Find me on MacAdmin Slack if you have any questions. If you need help implementing this in your environment, I could definitely walk through what the process is. It takes 15 minutes to set up. So what does it look like? So we have the application itself. Essentially, once the application is launched, you tap the reset button, and you'll see here in a few moments what it's going to do is it's going to pulse down. So it's going to give you 5 seconds to go ahead, and in case you accidentally hit reset, you have 5 seconds to cancel. You could also customize the wording on here. So if you don't want the button to say reset, if you want it to say refresh or anything else like that, we could do that. That green success message means that the device successfully communicated to Jamf Pro and it was able to perform that action. It'll then go through the device wipe, and on a modern device, within about 2 minutes, it's going to start, and you're going to see here in just a moment, it's going to choose the language, it's going to get it connected up to the wireless, and then we're good to go. There's some things to consider when it comes to return to service. The big one being certificate-based networks. So pretty much everybody I work with is using a certificate-based network, and that's great. However, for return to service to go through this process, it has to be a non-certificate-based network. So what most organizations do is they might have a hidden SSID with just a security key. I know of one one customer who has just like an open SSID like we do here, and then essentially once the device goes through return to service, it's going to re-enroll itself into Jamf Pro, and then it's going to go ahead and connect itself back to the secure network. But that's the major consideration. I've had, since last September when we launched this, I had maybe 10 people email in saying, hey, I can't get this going, and it was always either certificates or an enrollment customization. Is anybody in the room using enrollment customizations? Okay. So enrollment, the return to service process was meant to essentially automate everything. So my recommendation would be to create a pre-stage enrollment that's just going to be used for the devices that you're going to want to have the return to service application on. That way you don't have that enrollment customization interrupting the process essentially. So those are the two big considerations. Other than that, it works pretty flawlessly. So again, it's a one-tap erase and refresh. The Wi-Fi connection, the way that works, and I could dive into the console here in a little bit, but what you're going to go ahead and do is you're going to create a master configuration profile. And that master configuration profile is going to contain the SSID or SSIDs if you have multiple that you want it to try to connect to, if you have multiple sites. Me as an example here, I have like 8 SSIDs depending on where I'm at. That way I could demo this off. But the big thing when you're setting it up is you're not actually going to scope that config profile, because all we're going to do is take the ID of that config profile and we're going to put it in the managed app config for return to service. And we'll dive into what that looks like. But it'll automatically connect to that network for you. And again, this is strictly for onboarding, for talking to Apple, for talking to Jamf. Once that device is onboarded and enrolled into Jamf, then it's going to go ahead and kick it over to your secure network. And then, you know, obviously the amount of time. I mean, we talked about the information that was just sent over to me about the amount of taps that have been saved. So, you know, to you and I, you know, 5 taps is nothing, but I work in the healthcare vertical. So we have nurses and clinicians and patient devices that have to get refreshed after they're used. And what we see is that adoption rates of iPads significantly drops because people don't want to have to be going through those taps. They want, when a patient gets discharged or a device gets returned back to the help desk, we have APIs to actually perform what's called an auto return to service, where the app will automatically launch and you don't even have to push the button. There's also some considerations as to, should we have this on all of our devices? Maybe you know, you have a department that has a lot of turnover, and you don't want those devices coming back to IT every single time that somebody leaves. As an example, the hospital I used to work at, our hospice and home care department, we went through probably, you know, 20 staff a month. People would think it was the best job ever, then they would leave. This would have been great, because what I could have done was I could have made the app available. And something that we recently added about a month ago was the ability for you to put a passcode on the app. So the return to service app can live on your device. However, if somebody opens it up, it's going to ask for that passcode. So they're not going to actually be able to do anything with it. But if that device gets returned to you and you want to go ahead and re-provision it for whoever the next person is that's going to be using that device, great. You type in the passcode, you hit reset, you're good to go. All right. So what does this look like? We created a really nice video in the office. It's about a minute long. I'm just going to play it here. It is a little fast forward, but again, I'm going to hand out devices so you'll be able to see the process slowed down. So you'll see right now the device is wiping, walking away, grabbing a cup of coffee, chooses the language, get it connected to the network. There's no remote management screen. It's going to retrieve any configurations. And then once we have those configuration profiles loaded, all of our apps are going to install, and we're going to be ready to go. Dependent upon the amount of apps that you have on your device, if it's a shared device, I mean, 3 minutes, you could have a device ready to go. Like I said, literally grab a cup of coffee. Last night, I didn't know what the conference Wi-Fi was going to be like here. So I have all these devices here for you guys. And I came into this room, and these devices were all in a different Jamf instance that I didn't want them to be in. So I just went into ABM. I added the CSV file, and I edited the MDM server and moved them over to the one that they're going to be in now today. And I literally just went up to all the devices, and I just tapped return to service. And five or 6 minutes later, because of the conference Wi-Fi, I was good to go. So awesome. The return to service app, it is a free app. When we initially launched it last September, it was a custom B2B app. So if you wanted the application, you had to reach out to Jamf. You had to let us know that you wanted the application. You would have to send us some information from Apple Business Manager. You would have to enable custom apps, and then we would go ahead and assign the application to you. The app has become so popular that it was a very tedious process to do that. So me and Aaron, we were processing a lot of requests every day for the application, and we were like, hey, we should just launch this publicly out on the App Store, but we wanted to make sure that it was a good experience. So like, if you guys just go on your personal phone and type in Jamf Return to Service and you download it, it'll actually pop up and say, this is a Jamf Pro companion app. It's only meant to be used with Jamf Pro managed devices. So we wanted to make sure that it was a good experience. If you scan the QR code up there, that'll take you right to the App Store listing. At the bottom of the App Store listing, there is also some support documentation that will give you everything that you need to get it set up, and we'll walk through that as well. The documentation for this, it's very simple. We wrote it up. A lot of people really like getting their hands wet with it. So let's try it out. I have a bunch of devices up here. I'll just come around and hand them out to everybody. When you do get your device, just make sure that it's connected to the Wi-Fi, which they were all connected to the Wi-Fi at the beginning of this session, but you know how that could be. We're at a conference. Oh, yeah, that'd be great. And then at the end, if you could just please bring the devices back up. I think that this room would probably be packed if that was the case. So this is something a little bit new. I don't know if anybody ever did an interactive lab here at Mac Admins, but I thought this would be fun. You're welcome. You're welcome. And let's just not do anything yet with the devices. Let's just make sure they're connected to the Wi-Fi. You're welcome. All right, does everybody have a device?
Conference access, correct?
Yeah, yeah, it should be on the conference one. All right, so before we get into that, I'm just gonna go ahead and share my device out. All right. So we all have the same devices. Your device is either going to have a green or a red background on it. Very basic config right here. But feel free, like if you want to go into Notes app or make any, take a picture, something like that to prove that we're going to be doing the wipe. That's always a first good step. And then let's talk about the application a little bit here. So you'll see it's the pink Return to Service app. Again, when you tap it here, you'll see the reset button. We can brand all this and make it look nice and pretty, but most people are happy with it. Again, you got that 5-second countdown. So you do have 5 seconds in case you accidentally come in here and you select that. One thing to consider with Return to Service is it retains the language information. So if I select Japanese and that device wipes and it runs through Return to Service, it is going to come back up in Japanese. That could be a little daunting dependent upon who has the device. So what we added in the latest rev of the app was, hey, everybody recognizes the pink button. So if you pick the pink button and at the bottom, you'll see this change device language. And that'll just open up the language and settings, the language and region portion of settings. It's just a deep link that was implemented specifically for healthcare, but it's something that should be very helpful. Especially anybody in higher ed who has students from other countries. We all speak different languages, so we just wanted to make sure that we had a real nice, easy way for somebody to be able to reset the language if they need. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reset my device. So, sorry, my computer fell asleep. So you see I got that green success message there. And now it's going to go through the device wipe. Now, when it's wiping the device, it's not going to show up here on the screen. just an FYI. But if you guys want to go ahead and tap the Return to Service icon on your device and hit reset, and we'll go through this together. For you just entering, would you like a device? So we're doing a little interactive lab today. So we're discussing the Return to Service app. So I just instructed everybody to open up the Return to Service app and tap the reset button. So once you tap reset, it's going to go ahead and it's going to initiate that device wipe. Once that device wipe happens, pay attention to the screen. The first thing you're going to see is it's going to say setting language. So it's going to set, let me get you another one. There you go. You should get a green success.
Green success.
Cool. So it's going to set the language immediately. It is going to pop up with the Wi-Fi menu. So if the device does get returned to service and it's not on the network, you still have the option to go ahead and choose another network to connect to. So right now your device is what they should be doing. And for anybody at home, let me reconnect my QuickTime here. But what it's going to be doing is it's going to connect to the wireless, which should be the TPS conference wireless. And then what it's also going to go ahead and do then is it's going to download any configuration profiles. Take note that that remote management screen is not popping up on your device at this time. Yeah.
I think it's working. There we go. When you hit the reset button, is it pre-populating credentials for the Wi-Fi so it can get directly back on?
Yeah. So what it's doing is it's referencing a master Wi-Fi config profile in Jamf Pro. When I dive into the UI here in just a moment, I'll show you what that looks like, but you could specify multiple SSIDs if you need. The one thing that I did note was that if you're using a certificate-based network, you should have a onboarding or hidden wireless network for it to connect to. And then once it connects to that, it'll move it over to your cert-based network.
Thank you.
Yep. Right behind you.
Regarding the certificate-based network restriction, if it has a fallback or failure mode, if you don't offer up a certificate that has adequate access, would it still work?
Yeah, so you're saying if today in Jamf Pro you have a cert-based network, but you also have a fallback fail-safe network.
Yeah, basically, it just doesn't give you as much access, but you still can reach management.
Yeah, so what you would want to go ahead and do is you would actually want to build that failback network right into the config profile.
Okay.
Yep.
Uh,
Cool.
So, yeah, just same network, just if you don't proffer a certificate, i.e.
Yep.
It won't immediately die if it's asked.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Cool. Did everybody's devices reset and run through to return to service? Cool. Pretty quick, huh? Pretty quick, pretty slick. Like I said, you could just walk away and grab a cup of coffee. What I'm working on right now is a auto return to service functionality. So what auto return to service will do is, let's say a library or a help desk gets an iPad back. What they can do is they could check that iPad back in. It'll send an API call. It'll clear an extension attribute in Jamf, which will then go ahead and launch the return to service app in single app mode. And essentially, instead of you pushing the button, it just pushes the button. Boom, the app closes and it resets. Yeah, it's just something that Aaron built right into the app. Yeah, it's pretty cool. That has solved a really big challenge in healthcare. So a lot of our healthcare customers are using that, but I see a big use case for that in like EDU. And there's some neat Slack automations and things like that you could also use that with. So, are you getting something on yours? Yeah, try connecting to the conference Wi-Fi. That was the little disclaimer in the beginning. We are on the conference Wi-Fi. I don't know. This lab might have killed it. Okay, but like almost everybody, you're back at the home screen on your devices. Okay, cool. Feel free to, if you want to run through it again and see it again. That's why I wanted to put the devices in your hands. We also have other ways to run return to service. So has anybody ever had a device that was brought up to them and that device had a passcode on it? You didn't know the passcode, but at the end of the day, technically you could go into Jamf Pro and clear out the passcode, but you were going to wipe that device anyway. So we have another application called Jamf Mobile Assist. So what Jamf Mobile Assist does is it puts a QR code on a lock screen on your device. So essentially, let's just say this device here, it's locked out. I just want to go ahead and wipe it and return to service it and get it back in a like new condition. What I could do is I could scan the QR code on the lock screen with the Jamf Mobile Assist app, and I could say, hey, run it through return to service, and it'll just perform that exact same action there. Jamf Mobile Assist is also a free application that we offer at Jamf, and I'm going to pull that up here in just a moment and show you what that looks like. But those are the two ways today in Jamf Pro. There are feature requests out there to actually have a button placed along with all the other management commands inside of Jamf Pro. If you haven't upvoted those feature requests, please upvote them. Please provide any kind of comments. If you go to ideas.jamf.com and you sign in with your Jamf ID and you just type in return to service, it should just pop up right in there. But that's something that a lot of people are requesting. Mass action commands can actually be done today. It's an advanced workflow, but the documentation that I had up there on the QR code, the documentation does have how to set up the mass action commands. Essentially what you're doing is you're creating a smart group in Jamf to go ahead and any device that's in that smart group. So let's say that we have a classroom and it's the summer. We got all those devices back. We want those devices to go ahead and run through return to service and get them prepped again. Cool. We just go into that smart group. We send a mass action command to clear an extension attribute, like return to service ready. We will go ahead and blank that out, and that'll auto launch the app and kick off that process. So, yeah, can we throw the catch box to her just for our friends online?
For the QR code in the instance of being locked out via password, are you saying that the app will automate a QR code on the lock screen, or would it already have to be there?
Yeah, great question. So Jamf Mobile Assist, what it does is it generates a QR code that's unique to that particular device on the lock screen. And I'm gonna pull it up on here so you guys could see it here just momentarily. But each device would have its own unique QR code, and then the Jamf Mobile Assist app, it would not live on everybody's device. It would live on someone like maybe a help desk manager, or maybe like a technology subject matter expert, whoever we would want to bring those devices to, but it takes 2 seconds to be able to scan that QR code. And then all it's doing is it's sending an API call to Jamf to say, hey, return to service this device or clear the passcode. We have 12 different things that you could actually do. You could assign it to a different location. You could remotely reboot the device if you need. If the device is just stuck there, you need to reboot it, you can remotely reboot it. But yeah, anybody in here using Jamf School? Okay, for anybody online, Jamf School does support return to service as well. However, the application that we're focusing on today, which is the Jamf Return to Service app, is only supported in Jamf Pro just because it requires some app configurations and API calls. Yeah, can we throw it a catch box?
Really, just to elaborate on the last question, are you saying that the Jamf Mobile Assist app does not need to be present on all of those devices that are generating codes?
Correct.
How are they generating said codes?
Yeah, so there's something called JAWA, which stands for Jamf Automated Workflows Assistant. So JAWA lives in your environment on a VM, and JAWA is what's generating those unique QR codes for each device. And it's cool because you don't physically have to touch the device to set that QR code. It is just there once that device is enrolled. You could also do some other neat things. As an example, like if you want, like if it's a classroom device and you want the lock screen to show which classroom that device is supposed to belong in, you could have that show up there, iOS version. Yeah, through the automated wallpapers with JAWA.
Cool.
Yeah. And like I said, Jamf Mobile Assist itself is free. It's essentially Java requires an implementation service. It's like a half a day implementation service to get the automated wallpaper set up. Give me just a moment here. I'm just gonna pull up some more stuff here on Jamf Mobile Assist just to be able to show that to you guys. All right. So I'm gonna do another demo video just to kind of show you guys what that looks like. So you'll see here first and foremost, the iPhone is what's going to be the device that like the manager or the help desk or whoever you deem necessary is going to have the Jamf Mobile Assist app on. And then the device in the background is our target device. So the device that maybe we want to clear the passcode or we want to run it through return to service. So you'll see we got a help desk request here. Forgot passcode. So instead of actually having to log into Jamf Pro, we're just going to go ahead and clear it. So you'll see it's scanning the QR code. We got that success message. And if we go ahead and open up the application, or sorry, if we open up the iPad, you'll see we got all of our applications right here. All done in 10 seconds without actually having to go into a console. I used to be on call at a hospital, and I used to get calls at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. That would have been pretty helpful. Yeah, question?
Is the QR code just the serial number?
No.
Okay.
No, yeah, it's a unique serial number, or sorry, it's a unique QR code associated with that device. It's not just the serial number. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have two questions. One, I noticed that it had guest on the screen in the remote or in the video that you had. Does that mean, or is it possible using Jawas to take a field from Jamf and put it there? So like, let's say if we knew what the student's name that we assigned the device to, is that something that would be able to be on the screen?
Yep, exactly. So number one, like if you have a list of iPads, you have a CSV or something like that, and you know what students they're going to be going to, you could use inventory preload to go ahead and upload that into Jamf. And then depending upon how you want your wallpapers to be set up, Jawa can extract that information and display it on the lock screen. So yeah, if you want the display name of whoever's device that is, whether or not you want the classroom or the building that it's supposed to be in, that information can all be there. Like today, you could set some of that information using a lock screen message down at the bottom. And that's just, native MDM. What we've heard, especially like in healthcare, we have nurses who are like, I cannot see the department, I can't see the serial number down there. So that's where this idea of these automated wallpapers came about.
Yeah, I was able to see that Jamf School had that featured natively, and then to be able to do this, that sounds great. And then the second one is I was just looking through the documentation here, or at least the part on the Jamf Marketplace, and it also has remote reset. Is that basically like if not in a lab environment, but if we had that assigned to somebody and we wanted to refresh it ready to go, would that effectively be what this is able to do?
Yeah, so the remote reset functionality within Jamf Mobile Assist, what that does is we have a tool called Jamf Setup with single login. And what that allows you to do is for somebody to actually, like a shift worker, pick up a device at the beginning of their shift, sign in with their Entra credentials. It'll create an SSO token. That device will be essentially checked out to that user. But let's say that user puts the phone here, walks away, and you come and pick it up and you're like, I want to be able to use that. Without going through a full wipe, the remote reset, when you scan that QR code, it's going to go ahead and log that user out of any applications that they're in. It's going to go ahead and clear any history, anything else on that device, and it's going to get that device back in the state where you could go ahead and sign in again without actually running it through return to service. I've had customers who are like, well, that's cool, but I'd rather just run it through return to service just because it takes 2 minutes. So,
All right, cool. Thank you.
yeah, of course. Any other questions right now?
What was the name of that workflow app?
Yeah, the second app that I'm talking about is Jamf Mobile Assist. I'm going to put some resources up on the screen for you guys. That way, and like I mentioned, it is a free application. It's something that it just would require, like if you want those automated wallpapers, it would just require you to be able to do that. Thank you. Yeah, give me just a second. I'm going to pull up. Sorry, my it looks like my wireless went down, so let me just reconnect. But how's everybody enjoying the app so far? Yeah.
The big challenge seems to be I need to sweet talk the network and security people into letting me have it hidden in
Sure.
the
Yep.
network.
I would recommend that you do email, and I know that that's counter probably like everything that you do, but I would recommend you do it because when an iPad has connected to it, if it ever is in that locked no Wi-Fi thing, if it comes back to that same unsecured Wi-Fi, it comes back on and you can send commands.
Yep. Number one, if you come back and you hit any kind of roadblocks like that, so for anybody online, the question was, this looks great, but I gotta talk to InfoSec, I gotta talk to my networking team. Feel free to bring in your Jamf SE. So reach out to your Jamf CSM or your Jamf account exec or your Jamf SE if you know who they are. If you don't know who they are, let me know. I could look it up who they are. I'm even more than willing to hop on a call with you. Does everybody in here have a sandbox, Jamf Pro? So yesterday in the one session I was talking about with Jamf app installers, a lot of people didn't know that they're entitled to a sandbox environment. So all you have to do is request that sandbox environment through your Jamf Customer Success Manager, and then you'll have a playground to do stuff like this before you roll it out into production. So, cool. And I'm also more than happy, I'll share my info at the end, but I'm more than happy to hop on a call and get this set up with you guys. It's very simple to set up. Yeah, we got a question in the back.
All right, I may have just missed this, but does this process clear activation lock?
Yeah, so great question. So yes, return to service is meant to clear activation lock as long as the device is supervised. So yep.
I assumed as much. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, yep.
Thank you.
Of course.
Related question to when the device is wiped. I have a setup for a lab where they're using an iCloud account to synchronize data for one of their apps that
Okay.
Gets reused every semester. My current procedure is I get 99% automated, and then I have to go and type in this iCloud account on all these iPads. Is there something better I can do, please?
Yeah. Yeah. when we started working on these applications, that was like the primary use case, was how can we make an admin's life easier? How can we give you time back and be able to automate a lot of these functions? And like I mentioned today, there's like 12 or 13 supported payloads within Jamf Mobile Assist. When we started out, there was like 4 or 5, and a lot of those feature requests just came from customers like yourselves. So we're always happy to work with you and take your feedback to see what we could do to help you out. So,
Not at this time, but submit feedback. Got it.
Yep.
I can do that.
Cool.
So when you did the return to service, so we have a couple of our iPads that are set up as kiosk. Can you have them automatically install that profile on it? Or is it something that needs to be manually done after the return to service?
Yeah, so yes, you could have the return to service app on that device that is a kiosk that's in single app mode. Obviously, you're going to have it in single app mode, but I'm sure that there's times where you might set up an exclusion where maybe you're troubleshooting something and, in that case, yeah, absolutely. I would put the Jamf return to service app right on that device. Obviously, it's going to be locked down, so nobody's going to be able to access it because it's going to be in kiosk mode. But if for some reason you're troubleshooting and it's just, at that point you're like, well, we're best off. We should probably just nuke this device. That's where the Jamf return to service app would come in handy. And then again, it's going to know what configuration that iPad had. So once the device wipes, it'll just go ahead and put it back into single app mode. Cool. Let me plug my HDMI back in. I'm also more than happy to like demo this stuff to you as well. Cool. So this is what the app itself looks like. So on the left, you'll see we have our frontline manager device. So that's where you could do the remote reset, device transfer. You could assign it to a different location. You could erase the device, or I recommend doing a return to service. So the frontline manager is just simply going to scan that QR code on the lock screen. So right now you could see the frontline device, which is the iPad. Right now it's saying awaiting location assignment. Take note below the Jamf logo. You'll see it shows what version of iOS it's running, as well as the serial number of that device. That's that information that could be pulled out through Java, as well as custom branding the wallpaper with your logo on it. So here you can see I have a patient device. So maybe this is an example of a clinic. So the university that I used to work at, we used to give the student patients in the health center, we used to give them iPads to fill out intake paperwork. And specifically for like psychology, a lot of people were super concerned. I mean, HIPAA is very concerning, but they were just very concerned about their personal information, even though it was secure after they submitted it. What I've heard from a couple of customers is they really like this capability that when they get that iPad back, they could either launch the app or they could just use Jamf Mobile Assist to run it through that return to service to guarantee that no information is left behind. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, it's a free app. So if you guys are interested, come up to me afterwards. I could take down your information if you want. You could even put it in the feedback. What'll happen is we'll set up a call with you. We'll do a demo. This is something that if you're a Jamf customer today, we could put this into your environment for you to test out. That onboarding engagement that I was talking about, the half-day onboarding engagement, that is specifically just to get the automated wallpapers. We have a way using a web clip to automate the wallpaper with the QR code. So if you just want to test it out without actually committing that little bit of spend to have that Java infrastructure in your environment, to have that automated wallpaper, you could still at least test it out. And again, this is something that it's pretty simple to set it up. Cool. Any questions on Jamf Mobile Assist? How many people in here think they might be interested in using that in their environment? Cool. Yeah, this is an app. We launched this at JNUC last year. I did something very similar to this. I did an interactive lab. And we launched this, and we had a room half the size of this, and we were all squeezed together, and people were scanning devices and stuff like that. I didn't want to break the network here, so I just wanted to show off the return to service. I was even a little scared of that, but thank you, PSU, for at least letting us be able to do this here today. But yeah, that's great to hear. This is an app that a bunch of people at Jamf, that a bunch of us worked on this. Again, we launched it last year at JNUC, but it's one of those things where, since it's a companion app, a lot of people don't know about it, and unless you're meeting with your sales engineer regularly, you may not know about it, and that's why we all come to events like this. So, awesome. Any additional questions? Yeah.
Just approximately, what would you say the spend would be for that half-day session?
So the question was approximately what is the spend for the half-day engagement? I do not work in sales, so I do not like to quote, but I think it's like a couple $1,000. Yeah, it's not like a $10,000 or $20,000 engagement. It's a couple $1,000. So yeah, yeah, of course. Question in the back. Hey, you caught it.
Just for clarification once more, you said that the Java instance can be used for QR code generation without that implementation cost. Is it only that if you're going to use it for automated wallpapers that you pay
Yes.
the implementation?
Yeah. Yep. So
Okay.
Jamf Mobile Assist
Yes.
can be used without Java. However, it would require that the first time you utilize that device, you would have to select a web clip. And when you select that web clip, what it'll go ahead and do is it'll go ahead and generate that wallpaper for you. But if you want it to be that a device gets returned to service, reset, or it's just a brand new device and you want that wallpaper to be there right away, that's where you're going to want Java.
Okay, so I just, again, for clarification, because maybe I'm not understanding. If I want the QR code on my lock screen, that's
Yep.
also Java.
No.
Okay,
If you want automated QR codes, Java.
okay,
If you're fine with just tapping a web clip to get the QR code,
I see. Okay,
you don't need any kind of engagement.
understood. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Cool. I know we got like 20 some minutes left. I did just want to like go in and show you the back end of how some of this stuff works, if that's cool. And again, you guys have those devices. Feel free if you want to keep running them through return to service. And this is cool. I'm glad that you guys have interest in this stuff. So maybe next year we could do one of these specifically on Jamf Mobile Assist. That would be great. So I am going to thank you so much. Okay, so inside of my Jamf Pro console, we're just going to talk about what it takes to go ahead and deploy the return to service application. So first and foremost, you're going to want to come in here to the API roles and clients section, and you're going to want to create an API role for return to service. So essentially, this is kind of a newish feature in Jamf Pro. But essentially what return to service needs at a minimum is the ability to read iOS config profiles, to view MDM command information in the Jamf Pro API, update mobile devices, and send mobile device remote wipe commands. That's it. Those are 4 things that it needs in order to make all that happen. Once we have that API role set up, we also need to set up an API client for return to service. This is where it's going to give us our client ID and our client secret, which in tandem are going to be used when we set up our app config for return to service. So I'm coming in here to my app record, and you'll see we have app configuration here. Go away. So this is the managed app config. This is all the information that is needed in order to make this happen. So this contains that client secret, that client ID. You'll also see here the RTS Wi-Fi config profile ID. In this one here, it's 18. Okay, pay attention to that. In a moment, I'm going to talk through that. This is also where you could customize what you want that header label to be. So if you want it to say, ABC University, and then if you don't want it to say reset, if you want it to say, sign out or something like that, you could change the button as well. This is also where you could put in that language link. So if you want your devices to be able to change the language, you could do that. There's a whole bunch of keys. So if you go to jamf.it/RTS app, down here at the bottom, you'll see this app support, and this actually takes you into the documentation. So this will actually walk you through setting it up. And like I mentioned, it takes like 15-20 minutes to actually get it set up, but we're always updating this guide here. This talks about those limitations that we were talking about earlier with the enrollment customizations and with those certificate-based networks. This is also where we talk about other things like a mass action workflow utilizing the smart groups if you have a whole group of devices. But in here, you'll find the app config keys. So let me find them. So you can see the app config keys. This is at a minimum what you need for return to service to function. You need that client ID, the client secret, and then that Wi-Fi config profile ID. Everything after that it's optional. Here are all the optional commands. So this is where you could put in if you want a cancel label to say something else. That RTS language link that we were talking about, the access passcode. So this is new as of app version 2.4.7, which is like 2 weeks ago. We just added this. So like if I would come in here, I'm just going to change this to say RTS access passcode. I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4. So now on my test device, okay, I'm going to open up the return to service app. It might take a moment for it to push it down, but what it's going to do is it's going to require me to have a passcode because I went ahead and set that RTS access passcode, RTS access passcode key right there within the app config. So it's pretty customizable. The other neat thing is you could have multiple entries in here for return to service. So maybe you have return to service that you're using for library, maybe you have one that you're using for another department. You could simply add another app record in here. So if I leave out of here, you'll see I have one here called Jamf Return to Service Auto. So this one has some different app keys in here. And this is where I was talking about earlier, where like in healthcare, we could actually have it that when a patient gets discharged from the hospital, the moment we see that discharge command, it'll clear an extension attribute in Jamf, and it'll go ahead and run that device through return to service, and it'll be ready for the next patient in 3 to 5 minutes. The config profiles. So if I come in here, you'll see here I have this Wi-Fi profile for return to service. And you'll see all I have in here are different SSIDs. So these are all my test SSIDs for return to service. So if I scroll all the way down here to the bottom, you'll see in here we got TPS guest for when I was testing over in the hotel, and then we got TPS conference access. So that's all I had to do was add that SSID in here and tell it to automatically join. Essentially, if you put multiple SSIDs in here, it's going to go ahead and pick the most secure one. This is mainly used like with multiple SSIDs if you're going to like a different location and the device goes through return to service, it'll just pick the appropriate network. But you'll see I don't have this scoped to anything. You actually do not want to scope this profile. It's just referencing it through the app config. So up here, up at the top in the address bar, you'll see the config profile ID is 18. So when we were setting up that managed app config, we're just telling the managed app config to reference the config profile ID to be used. So that's how that's set up. Jamf Mobile Assist. I'm going to pull up another instance here. Too many devices.
Adam, I have a question specifically about that Wi-Fi config not
Yeah.
being scoped out.
Yeah, sure. Can we just catch box for everybody online?
Test. So my question was about the reference to that unscoped Wi-Fi config.
Mhm.
Is the assumption that once the return to service is completed, then whatever the appropriate, you would have additional Wi-Fi configs that would then apply?
Exactly. So let's just use the Penn Stater as an example. So right now we have it set up to TPS-conference. Let's just say that that's what we're utilizing for return to service. But then the Penn Stater has a more secure network that's using a certificate or something like that. Essentially, once the device goes through return to service, it's going to go ahead and enroll back into Jamf. And then Jamf is going to go ahead and push down a config profile that you would normally have scoped to your devices. So that's why you don't want to scope that profile to all your devices. The app knows the ID of that config profile, and it's just going to go ahead and leverage that ID. Let me just get my super crazy password. What's that? Oh, really? We'll be good for this. See. Yeah. So Jamf Mobile Assist is also going to be using the app config. So essentially, we would just come in here, we would set up the preference. This is where you could come in here and you could do different keys. So you could say like, I'm just going to say nursing manager. Return to service. And I might have another one that's just like patient device. And I might say clear passcode. So where I'm getting at with this is like maybe somebody who does not work in IT wants to go ahead and just have the ability to clear a passcode on the graveyard shift. But we don't want them to have to be able to return to service the device. Maybe we want IT or somebody who has some more privileges to do that. That's where you could come in and you could create these different app records and different app configs with Jamf Mobile Assist. So, cool.
Is there separate documentation for those keys?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we could chat afterwards. I could get that to you. Yeah, of course. Cool. Yeah. We got 13 minutes left for questions. Thank you so much for the engaging conversation. Please submit any feedback, anything that you would like to see next year. I'll be up here, so if you have questions, if you want to come up, I could give you my information if you want to reach out to me. If you're on Mac admins, my handle is DERRAD. So you could always send me a Slack message on there. My email address is adam.derrick, spelled DERRICK, @jamf.com. If you want to book some time with me, you want to chat more, you want to chat over Zoom, jamf.it/book Adam. That will take you right to my Calendly page. My time I open up to everybody, so if you guys want to get this set up in your environment, you need a little help, feel free to reach out. So thank you so much.